From the team that brought you Whoops, I used the felt side of my beater. My Roland cymbals keep failing. So I've had this kit for a couple years now. Within the first year, they did replace one of them for me. These are the CY-8 units, except for the hi-hat over here, which is still working great, by the way. But I don't know which one of those that was at this point. And since I've had two more fail on me. So unlike the video I did for the KD-10 unit, there are quite a few out there about the Roland cymbals failing, if that tells you anything. So what I thought I would do is take my one still malfunctioning cymbal here, take it apart, and show you some easy points of failure that I've come across watching all these videos out there. The hope being that by the time I'm done, maybe your problem will be fixed. Maybe. And that's going to be my disclaimer. You can see I've already been through it once here with this cymbal, and while the hit detection does work perfectly at this point, you can tell it's still missing the rubber and can't be choked. I also think that's essentially the point of failure though, which is why it's probably working now. But if you think your problem requires a bit more of a technical solution, then this might not be your video. We're not going to be doing any soldering or anything like that, but at the very least, you might be able to walk away maybe with some new troubleshooting ideas. So what I will do, again, is kind of start from easiest to hardest here, mostly in terms of what you're going to have to do to get this thing back together. And again, if by time I'm done with the easy stuff, your problem is fixed, then you can blissfully go about your business. Otherwise, I'm really going to tear this thing apart. And I'll be honest, I don't have the way to put it all back together. That's why you're kind of looking at half a cymbal over here, which works perfectly and feels horrible though. But like the KD-10 video, I figure if I take this entire thing apart, you'll at least know what you're getting into somewhat. So let's get started and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I obviously don't have to explain this first part to you here, but luckily all you're going to need is a single cross tip or Phillips screwdriver. These screws on the perimeter, meaning these four, including the recessed one right here, are all the same size, while these ones at the center are a bit longer. So that's really the only separation you're going to have to worry about. So when it comes time to take this off, I can tell you that if you lift up right here first till that pops and then kind of slide it over a bit, it'll come off the easiest. So there's that recessed screw. Now basically what you're looking for, and again, I'm not a technician, I'm just okay at taking things apart and then looking for things that might be broken. But I know when it comes to this, you're looking for anything that would create an intermittent connection or an errant vibration, I guess you could say. Something that would create a false positive, right? So right off the bat, you're going to see the soldering points right here. You should be able to tell if those are cracked or if they're loose at all pretty easily. Also, if somehow this whole thing is coming up, again, you should be able to tell pretty easily. I'm doing great there. The next point of failure is sometimes I've seen this connector itself can become cracked at the glue or loose in some other way, so just make sure that's doing all right. The other thing is this connection right here, this little ribbon connector, you can pull out fairly easily. You can check the contacts there, make sure that's clean. If you think it needs to be clean, just get some contact cleaner or whatever you got and maybe put some on there and put it in there, and then you can clean the contacts in there at the same time. You see these pieces of tape right here? I actually put this one down, but I believe they do come with some kind of pre-installed. I just put some better gaffer's tape down after the fact. So I don't think that would create any issues, but it does help to keep it out of the way. Next, we're going to take off the little board itself here. Again, you want to pay attention to how tight the screws are because you'll want to try and put them back just as tight and usually not tighter, especially when it comes to circuit boards. But if you pull this up, and again, disconnect that little ribbon first, you'll see underneath there's a bunch more soldering points, and I am showing my ignorance here. I don't know what this stuff is called. It's a little tackier, more of a putty. I'm guessing it's still soldered under there or connected in some way because I don't think this would be conducive, but who knows. Again, just check where everything terminates on the board, and if you see something that's obviously cracked, then that's where you might have to resolder. Here, I don't know, probably heat is still your solution, but again, I'm doing okay. All looks well for me. So I'm just going to reconnect this first. Then you can reconnect this ribbon. Again, this is the second time I've taken this apart, and I did clean this the last time, so you'll be able to tell it kind of still clicks in there. And again, the connection's pretty tight. Unless something's wrong, I can't imagine that would be what's disconnecting. But if you're really worried about that, you could take another piece of kind of tape like this, gaffers or electrical or whatever, and kind of put it down right there. You know, try to tape it together as best you can without, again, bending anything. Unfortunately, that's kind of it for the low impact stuff. So I'm going to put this back on before we really tear the thing apart. Again, it helps if you kind of bend it while you're putting it on. Slide it into that connector spot. And then the rest kind of falls down. While I'm doing this, I will say I obviously don't envy the engineers that have to come up with devices like this that are made to take a beating. So I want to be careful not to necessarily fault anybody for that. I get it, it's hard, but I don't know why they couldn't just make these a little bit more repairable. Heck, when it comes to the cymbal, make it modular. I don't care, like if it's a piece that you just can't get, you know, durability down, make it something that I can buy a new one of and just install it rather easily. You know, make some money on the deal if you have to. Although I will say I don't see a lot of other brand cymbals having this issue that I'm about to tell you about right now. So again, unfortunately that's about it for the low impact stuff. So this is kind of your point of no return here. The next step is to tear this entire thing off, and why I say that's kind of, wow, this is coming off a lot easier than the other one did. The other one, this looks to have some sort of different attachment mechanism going on. Interesting. The other one was, maybe this was my refurb actually, maybe that's why. The other one was, it's super sticky. I had to really get into it and tear into it, and it came apart in the process and couldn't go back together all that easily. But the reason why you have to take this off, oh, here's another thing you shouldn't do. So in trying to fix this the first time around, I noticed that this edge was coming up, so I was like, oh, maybe that's it, you know, and this might have still been it actually, although it didn't fix the problem when I did this. But I thought maybe when it was flapping, which is I think what's happening with the other cymbal, it's why I had to keep the rubber off. I think when I'm hitting it here, it's still flapping here, and that's what's creating an extra hit. So what I did on this edge was super glue it down, and now that's going to easily be the most difficult part of this entire process I'm showing you now. So learn from me. Luckily they are built, it seems, strongly enough not to break while you're really yanking on it, but this is pretty much what I had to do with the other one at one point. And there are some videos out there that show people kind of just lifting it up at the edge here and peeling it over like that. I wasn't able to make that work, so your mileage may differ, but the problem we are trying to get at here is that the rubber deteriorates on the inside and builds up and creates, I guess some people have been calling it pixie dust or whatnot, but what that does is interfere with the choking mechanism. So these have a choking feature where if you do this, it will mute. But I think what happens is when there's buildup, is it either immediately mutes itself or it still reads as mute when you do the next hit. So functionally it manifests in just nothing happening. So you will want to be careful of, you can see this is starting to show on some, you don't want to damage that ribbon connector. That's your number one. But again, it's fairly recessed, so I think you'll be okay. Just be careful. And this does actually apply to, at the very least, any Roland cymbal that has similar plastic rubber hybrid construction. A lot of the videos I saw out there weren't necessarily for the CY-8 like mine is, but still apply. Okay, I basically turned the whole thing inside out here, so you can at least see where the issue is starting to originate. And this is not related to the super glue I put in. You can see there's kind of a lot of dust going on there. deteriorate. I hesitate to say deteriorate because I don't think it's an issue of age, obviously. I think it's just repeated use. So age in that way, maybe. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. You can see if I turn it over, that's what you're trying to be careful of right there. And you can kind of see the dust is building up some there. And honestly, I don't know exactly how the choke functions, like what exactly the electronics are doing there, but I know that since all of my problems go away when I bypass that feature altogether, that's definitely my particular point of failure with this stuff. So if there's any dust that you can see, get rid of the dust. That's kind of the big takeaway here, at least, that we're gonna see if that fixes my issue. You gotta blow it away, cool. Just do what you can to clean up all the corners, and it'll sometimes gather in here in the cymbal too, so make sure you're getting all the nooks and crannies. There's a big one right there. And you want to make sure there's nothing new in there. You don't want to introduce any other obstructions. Looking pretty good. Honestly, this looks a lot better than the other one did. The other one I took apart and it was just everywhere. So that would probably point at this being the refurb as well, because it just has a little less buildup. Although my other two cymbals over there, hi-hat included, still going fine. So I don't really know. All I know is that it's inconsistent, and Roland could really, this has been going on, like when I said there's already videos out there, this has been going on for years. So while I am careful to understand that building stuff like this is hard, years, you know, like, so. And as far as getting this back down, again, that's what I haven't quite figured out. I removed because it was such an ordeal on the other one, I removed it completely, so it's just naked plastic at this point. So if I put the rubber back on, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's causing too many vibrations, that's why. And you can do this too, if all else fails, take the rubber off completely, turn the cymbal around, just play on this side. It feels horrible, but it'll at least register correctly. When it comes to hit detection, you lose the choke feature altogether, but let's see if that actually did anything, even though I can't really reattach the rubber completely at this point. I know this isn't how most people would test it out, but this is obviously how I use these most often. If you've been to the YouTube channel at all. So either way, we'll get a feel for whether or not it's functioning like it should. Ready? Before it would, you know, maybe 1 in 10 would just nothing. Not as much if I'm being really light, but there's like at no point am I playing the drums like this, so we're probably okay. I think we did it.